Hello, and today I am a set of talking hands because I am attempting now for the third time to do my first video tutorial. My camera has not been cooperating, mostly because I have no idea how to work it, but there have been, I know I had trouble. I am working on the Squared Poncho. It's a free pattern, and it is on the Hedgehog Fibers website. And I was a very good friend and let my friends navigate the minefield of the mechanics of attaching the border first. I was such a good friend, and then I let them show me how they figured out how to do it. And I know that some people, a lot of people have had some questions and had some issues about how to attach the border. And I know I was confused with it, and it really isn't difficult, but it was a little, I had to have somebody show me. So I thought, since my friends were so nice and helped me to do it, that I would pay it forward and try to make a tutorial and show you how I attached the border to the first square. Now, since I've already attached my borders, you can see here, I knit up a quick little sample, and I will show you on that sample how I did it. What I do want to show you on this is what, and I'm so hoping my camera will stay in focus this time, what the front looks like. Now, this is the front, and you can see the front square is actually on the right side, which, if you look at the diagram on the pattern, that's where the front square will be. And this is the first border that is attached. And you can see on the front, it's pretty seamless, and it looks very nice. And the back forms a very neat ridge or seam, which basically is just your V's going up the front, so that, you know, if you take your poncho off, or if it flips open or whatever, it has a very nice, neat seam going down the center where your blocks attach. So I'm going to show you how I did that on a little sample, but I just wanted to show you how it looks like on the finished project. So I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to bring out my little swatch that I made for this. This is not double threaded. In other words, we're using two yarns together to marl. This is only a single, and I did use a size 5 needle. I thought that would make the stitches a little bit bigger and a little bit easier to see. But a couple of things I want to point out on my little swatch here. I did use, first of all, I bound off my top stitches because obviously I'm not going to continue on with this. But on your square one, your stitches on the top will be live. Those are not the stitches that you're going to be attaching to the border. You're going to leave those stitches live when you finish your 45 ridges. Okay, so those are either going to stay on a spare needle, on a holder, or on waste yarn. Okay, that's the top of my square. This is the right side of the square. Now, I did a cable cast on, okay, and I will explain why I used that cable cast on. Last time the phone rang. This is the third time I'm doing this. If you've watched any of my podcasts, you know they never go in one piece. I'm trying to get through this. This is my third one. My phone rang, my camera fell over. Let's see if we can get through this. Anyway, this is the right side of my work, and when you use the cable cast on, or pretty much any cast on, there are two ways you can make sure you're on the right side. With the cable cast on, when you're on the right side, your tail will be on the left. That's one way. The other way, and it doesn't matter what cast on you do, you can tell you're on the right side when you have an even number of ridges on both sides of your fabric. okay? Because on your right side, you're going to be putting a ridge on one side. On the wrong side, you're going to be putting a ridge on the other side. So when you have an even number of ridges on the right side and the wrong side, you'll then be on the right side ready to start another row. Okay? So that's, I just wanted to point that out. Now, some question has been, where do you start to connect the border? And the answer to that is, you want your wrong side facing. So again, we've established this is my right side. I'm going to turn it over so that I have the wrong side facing. Okay? Here's the bottom of my square. These would be where your live stitches are. You want to start attaching down here at the bottom of the square, essentially where you started casting on. So the bottom right side of the wrong side of the fabric, okay? Wrong side facing on the right side is where you're going to start attaching, picking up your selvage stitches and attaching your border. Okay, I'm going to set this aside and I'm actually going to cast on for the border stitches. And the reason is I'm just want to make sure, I'm not sure if everybody is familiar with a cable cast on, so I thought I would just do a little tutorial as long as I have to get them on the needle anyway. And the other reason is a cable cast on, which is also very similar to a knitted cast on, starts with a slip knot, and I am so not a fan of slip knots. So I'm going to show you how I get rid of my slip knot, and I'm going to try, I'm actually going to see if oh God, I am apologizing in advance for the chair noise, the jiggling cameras, and if I'm making anybody seasick. Like I said, this is my first, so this is a huge learning curve. So I'm going to start with my slip knot. Okay, that's my slip knot, and I'm going to put it on my needle. And the pattern calls for 10 to cast on 10, cable cast on 10 stitches. I'm not going to count this, so I'm right now going to cast on 11 stitches. Now your first stitch, you're going to actually do a regular knitted cast on, which means you're going to go into this stitch as if to knit it, okay? Yarn around in the back, pull it through, and you're going to take that stitch and put it without twisting it onto the end of your needle. All right? And you'll see you now have 2 stitches on there. But I'm not going to count this one. All right? That's a knitted cast on. If I were to go in here again and do the same thing, go into that stitch and repeat the same thing, that would be a knitted cast on. A cable cast on, you go in between these 2 stitches. So your needle is coming out the back from being in between these 2 stitches. And then you repeat the same exact thing. You knit that stitch, you pull it out, and it doesn't matter how big the loop is because you're going to tighten it down. You place it onto the end of your needle without twisting it. Now I don't tighten it down until I get my needle back in between, and then you can tighten it down, but you want to make sure that your needle is in between the last 2 stitches, go around, pull it through, and place it onto the end of your needle, just like that. I go right back in between, tighten down my stitch, knit it, oops, I just dropped it. So we're going to go right in between, go around as if to knit, And you can see already why I don't like this slip knot. It's already in my way, but go in between, pull that stitch through, and without twisting it, place it right onto the end of the needle. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and cast on my 11 stitches, because again, I'm casting on 10, but I'm not counting my slip knot. I'm trying to stay in the frame. Maybe if I zoom out a little bit, let's see. Okay, maybe that'll help a little bit. Onto the end, in between, onto the end, in between. Oops, as I'm trying to stay in frame, I'm losing my grip here. Which if you know me at all, it's not a very strong hold on my grip in the first place. Okay, so let's get these cast on. Okay, let's see, how many do we have? Without the slip knot, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I have to cast on one more. And put it onto the end of the needle. Okay, so I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, plus this absolutely unsightly bulge hanging here at the end, which is a slip knot. And the problem is partly that once you've put it on your needle, it no longer acts as a slip knot. You can't tighten that bulge back up again. So that's part of the reason why I really dislike it. So I'm going to get rid of it. So how I do that is I slide my stitches to the other end of the needle. And I'm going to take that stitch and pray I'm in focus. Let's see, how can we best do this? I'm going to take that last stitch right here, and I'm going to pull that off the needle. I'm just going to drop it off. That leaves me with 10 stitches, but I still have this ugly bulge thing here. So what I would recommend when you put your slip knot on, don't tighten it down because it's only going to make it more difficult for you to pick it out. So I'm going to take the end of my needle and I'm going to follow it around, and I'm actually going to undo that knot. And that's just really a matter of following along where your yarn is. And it does require a couple of times going in because it's actually knotted twice once you start knitting it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally just pick out that knot. Let's make sure I still have 10. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah. Okay. And you just keep following it through until you're able to get to your bottom stitch. And I know it actually sounds more complicated than it is. Okay. But now you see I'm up to my bottom stitch, and now I have the ability to tighten that stitch back down, which I didn't have with that ugly bump, and that ugly bump is gone. All right, so that slip knot's gone. I have my 10 stitches. Don't forget now you need to slide them back to the working side, the other side of the needle, and turn it around so that you're ready to work your stitches. Okay, so I have my 10 cast on stitches, and the first thing that you want to do, and it says in the pattern to knit 9. Do not turn your work. So this is the end of my cast on. Okay, you can see that's my last cast on stitch. And another thing I want to point out, make sure when you start to knit this first stitch has a tendency to sort of crawl on over and make itself look like the one next to it. So take your needle tip and just make sure you separate them all out so that you're actually starting in that very first stitch. But since it was not specified in the actual section 2, what I want to point out is it is in the instructions, in the information section, that you're going to slip the first stitch of each row with the yarn in front. And that applies to the border as well. Because even though we're going to be attaching this side, eventually we will be attaching this side to a different square. I knew that was going to happen again. We're going to ignore the phone. It will stop ringing. So we're going to slip this stitch because we want to selvage on this edge as well. So we're going to bring our yarn to the front. We're going to slip that first stitch and make sure again that you're separating them out and that you are slipping that first stitch only. And we're going to slip that stitch with the yarn in front. Then you're going to bring your yarn to the back and you're going to knit to the last stitch. Okay, and just make sure that you've separated your stitches, because with a cable cast on, let's see if we can show it better this way, they do tend to sort of climb on one another. I don't know any other way to say it, but they sort of cling together. So we're going to knit to that last stitch. Let's see if turning it this way is any better. Now here's my last stitch, and you can see it's loose, but because I took that slip knot out, I can tighten it down. Now we're going to slip that last stitch, okay, with the yarn in the back. So we're going to slip that stitch. You can tighten it down. That's your border stitch. You've knit across your border stitches. Okay. So now we're going to go back to our square. Okay, there we go. We're in focus. Okay, I'm saying my prayers. This is the wrong side. I have the wrong side facing up. Here's my tail. And we want to start attaching at this bottom point, right here, at the very bottom of the wrong side. So if you pick it up with the wrong side facing you and you take a look at the top, you can see right here is that first selvage stitch that you want to get. That's the first stitch you're going to pick up, the bottom of the wrong side. You're going to go in under both legs and pick up that stitch. Now the pattern says to pick up and knit. So you're going to keep that stitch on the left hand needle. Okay, you're going to hold that stitch, go into it with your right hand needle, and you're going to knit that stitch. Okay, now you have your new stitch that you just knit right here and your slip stitch right here, and you want to knit those two stitches together through the back loop. So you're going to put your left hand needle in the front of those two stitches and knit them together, oops, through the back loop. Oh my goodness. Okay. And just because I'm on camera, I'm lucky my hands aren't shaking. Let's see if we can stay in frame. Okay. You're going to knit those together through the back loop. And again, because it is no longer a slip knot, we're going to tighten that right down. Okay? And that's your first join. So now you're going to turn your work, and you're actually now on the right side. Okay? And we're going to knit across the border stitches. And it says to slip that first stitch with the yarn in front. So I'm going to slip that stitch with yarn in front, bring my yarn to the back, and then I'm just simply going to knit across the rest of the border stitches. Okay, right to the end, we're going to knit across. So we've now attached one stitch. Okay, and I'm going to turn my work, and we're going to go back across to attach to the next stitch. So we're going to start again by slipping this first stitch with the yarn in front. If anything could possibly go wrong, it did. My battery just died. Okay. We're going to keep forging ahead. All right. I've slipped my first stitch. Now we're going to have focus issues. Oh, Lordy. Oh, it's a good thing I don't give up that easy. Okay. Let's see. All right. Are we back there? Are we back in business? Okay. All right. I have slipped my first stitch. Oh, maybe that's better. Yarn in the back, and I'm going to knit across my border stitches to the last stitch. Okay, so I slipped one. I'm going to knit 8. And here I am at my last stitch of the border, and I am going to slip that one with the yarn in the back. All right, and again, I have my wrong side facing of my square, and I want to get the next selvage stitch. So again, wrong side, this is the bottom, your live stitches are up here. Here are your live stitches up at the top. Here's your side. Here's your bottom down here. All right, you've picked up that first stitch. Now I want to go in and get the next selvage stitch, which is right here. So let me see if I can manipulate this so that you can see. See the best way to do this. Let's put that down. Okay. Right next to where you picked up your stitch, you're going to pick up this next selvage stitch right here. You're going to go in from the front to the back with the wrong side facing. So you've picked up that next selvage stitch right there, okay, and it says pick up and knit. So I'm going to take that stitch that I just picked up, and I'm going to knit it, and then I want to knit it together with the slipped stitch through the back loop. So I'm going to put this needle, my left needle, in the front of those two stitches, and I'm going to knit them together through the back loop like that. and I'm going to turn my work. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to, as per the pattern, I'm going to slip that first stitch with the yarn in front, move my yarn to the back, and I'm going to knit across my border stitches. Hopefully staying in frame here. Let's see. Okay, all across the border stitches. And I'm going to turn my work again. So now again, the wrong side is facing. Okay, here's my square. Let's see if I can put down and show you what I have here. Here's my square. Here's the bottom, and I'm going upwards. This is the wrong side of the fabric, and this is the edge that I'm attaching. So I'm going to start again across the border stitches. I'm going to slip this first one with the yarn in front. I'm going to knit to the last stitch. I would take my phone off the hook if it didn't make that horrid, annoying noise. And nowadays, the beeping doesn't stop. It just keeps on going. Okay, so we're going to slip this one, this last border stitch with the yarn in the back, and we're going to go for the next selvage stitch to pick up. And you can see them all right there, nice selvage stitches. This is the next one right here. I'm going to go under both legs of that stitch. I'm going to pick it up. Stay in the camera there. I'm going to pick up that selvage stitch. I'm going to knit it like that. And then I'm going to put this needle in the front of those two stitches so that I can knit them together through the back loop. And then I'm going to turn my work. And I'm just going to do a few more so that I can show you how the front and the back will end up looking. So again, you're going to slip this first stitch purlwise with the yarn in front and just knit across the rest of your border stitches. Okay, turn your work. All right, and again, you have the bottom is where you're working up from. Here up here would be your live stitches that you have either on a needle or a holder, and you're working from the bottom up. So we're starting outside from the border stitches. So we're going to slip one with yarn in front and knit to the last stitch. Okay. All right, that last stitch there, you're going to slip that purlwise with the yarn in back. Don't tell me I'm out of focus again. here's the wrong side of my work. Here's the top. Okay, I have the wrong side facing. So what I want to do now is I want to go into that next selvage stitch. I'm going to put that down so that I can hopefully show where I'm at and where I'm going with this. There we go. Okay, so you can see the selvage stitches all lined up here. Those are all the ones that you're going to be picking up one by one. So we're going to go into that next one, which is right next to the one we just picked up. Go in from the front to the back with the left-hand needle. Oops. You have that stitch on your left-hand needle. Let's get my hand out of the way here. Right there is your stitch that you picked up. And we're going to knit that stitch. Okay? Now you have those two stitches, the one that you slipped and the one that you picked up and knit. You're going to take your left-hand needle, go into the front of those two stitches so that you can knit them together through the back loop. And you've joined another stitch. And what I wanted you to see, and what I want to show here, again, this is the wrong side of your work. We're going to try to focus again. Let's see. I know I'm going to start making people seasick, which is not going to help me. Okay. You can now see on the wrong side, those V's that I showed you before are starting to line up on the wrong side, which is exactly what you want. That's your little seam, but it's not really a seam. Okay, it's just those V's. And on the right side, if I get all my tails out of the way, you can see that it's joining pretty much seamless. Okay, and it's very flat. There's no ridge, there's nothing in the front. And that's how you join the border to your square for square 1 and section 2, which is your first border join. And I haven't gotten any further in the pattern, but if there's any further confusion or whatnot, I will attempt to make another tutorial. Lord knows, I hope this one was a little bit helpful. I really do. I realize that I'm not the greatest at this, and I think I need to practice this a little bit more, or at least get the camera to focus and cooperate with me. But the important thing really here is that you're starting in the right place, which would be with the wrong side facing the bottom corner, okay, of the right side. So if you have the wrong side of the fabric facing, you're going to start at that bottom right corner to join. And basically, once you've gone across your stitches, your border stitches, all you're then doing is going in and picking up each one of these selvage stitches under both legs, picking it up, knitting it, and then knitting it together with the stitch that you slipped. I'll do one more row because my camera seems to be cooperating right now. So I'll do one more row. You're going to slip that first stitch with the yarn in front, bring it to the back, and knit across your border stitches. Okay, turn your work. Oops. Turn your work. So again, you have, here's again going to be the top, your live stitches at the top, your borders on the right. You're going to remember to slip that first stitch with the yarn in front so that you create that selvage edge on the other side of the border. You're going to knit to the last stitch. Okay. You're going to slip that last stitch purlwise with the yarn in the back. And now you have again the wrong side facing, and you're going to go in and pick up that next selvage stitch under both legs. Just pick it up, knit that picked up stitch, okay, and then you want to knit it together with the slip stitch through the back loop. So you're going to take your left needle through the front of both those stitches. I've got like a death grip on this needle, and knit those two together. And there you have it. And you can see that that forms that nice V seam on the wrong side of your work. Okay, because remember again, this is the wrong side. And the right side, when you get all your tails out of the way, is just basically nicely joined together. So I hope that this was helpful. I apologize if I made anybody seasick. I hope that it was in focus enough that you were able to get the concept of how to join the two pieces. If there's any more help, or if you need any more, if you would like me to do any more tutorials or attempt any more tutorials, you can leave a comment in the comment section below. You can also PM me on Ravelry. My username on Ravelry is JanElinRN, JANELINRN. So you can find me there. And please, if you have a chance, join our podcast and watch our podcast on KnitScents. And that's also on YouTube, where I'm going to put this tutorial video. So I hope that was helpful. And I hope you enjoy knitting your squared poncho, and happy knitting!